folks, I'm going to explain a frequently asked question that we get about sewer check valves. This is a sewer check valve, and that is, how do you clean it? Now, usually, unless your sewer is above your finished floor, it's in a pit similar to this, and it's not readily accessible. So you really want to get a ratchet wrench. It takes a 1/2 inch bit, the nut's a 1/2 inch. Just so you can see what I'm doing, we're going to remove this pit. To clean it is easy, but not pleasant. So you have to decide for yourself whether you want to do it or not. It's 4 bolts. You would just use the ratchet, undo the 4 bolts. You know, I already pre-loosened this, but it's super simple. You take off the 4 bolts. Obviously, if you use a ratchet wrench, you eliminate the chance of you scuffing up your knuckles. You always wear gloves. Probably rubber gloves would be better than these, because if you're going to clean it, unfortunately, it's by hand. Obviously, you'd be a lot tighter. I pre-loosened these. I cheated. So it's only 4 bolts. If a 1/2 inch ratchet, you remove the top. This is a very simple, unsophisticated device. A check valve is merely this housing, and it has a flap inside. The flap faces the street. So when water comes back from the street side, it closes. The trap is on this side. There's always the check valve, then your house trap. The flap is always on the house side facing the street. Now, how you clean it, unfortunately, there is no special tools. You're going to lift the flap a little bit. With rubber gloves, you want to make sure the seal doesn't have grease or paper or dirt. And again, the best way to do that is just by feel of hand with rubber gloves. You know, to use a brush or this or that, I guess you could, but I prefer that you just feel what you're doing. You close it back down. You might wash it out with, you know, garden hose, and then you reverse the process, and you put your 4 bolts back in, and that would clean your check valve. Another little thing before we get to the Q&A is this is specifically made for flash rainstorms, flash floods. It will hold back most of the vast majority of the rainwater for a few hours, but not for a prolonged period of time. Then you need a more sophisticated device that's called a sewer floodgate valve. Now, Christina, you get these calls all the time, right?
Yeah.
So, like, what do folks usually ask?
Besides how to clean it, if the little flat breaks, do we replace just that or the entire device?
You know, I'm glad you're asking that. It looks like it's an easily replaceable flap. It's a cotter pin in there. You remove it, you can put a new flap in. But then the thing is it just the flap that broke? If it is, you can replace it. If the seal has become worn or really allows a lot of water to go through, you probably should replace the whole check valve. Just so you know, the check valve itself maybe cost about $100. It's a very inexpensive device. It's really the labor of putting it in and out.
Okay. Another question that we get is, if I don't want to clean it and touch it myself, would a plumber, Balkan Plumbing, come out and clean the device?
Yeah, we could do that for folks. I think we charge a typical service charge. It might be, I'm not sure our exact amount. Is it $125, $110, something like that, to clean the valve out, wash it out, and then of course, if you want us to do any kind of drain cleaning or any other kind of drain service, you'd probably get a discount on our normal rate because we're already at your house.
Okay. And again, you said that it doesn't hold back 100% of the water that comes in from outside into your home. So we'll get some water after a certain period of time.
Yeah, the amount of water that it lets through, it takes probably a number of hours before it would back up to the point where it would become visible above your floor. That's why it can most definitely withstand when the city sewer surcharges during like a flash storm, because the city sewer fills, the city sewer empties, and we get very few complaints of people getting backed up after we put in the check valve.
Okay. How do I know that it's broken or it needs to be replaced?
Well, if it needs to be, if it's hasn't been cleaned, that's usually the first thing. I don't know of them really to break too frequently. And if all of a sudden you get a flash storm and you've had other flash storms, and this particular flash storm you get a backup, that's your sign right there that it either needs to be cleaned, in all likelihood that'll do it, or potentially replaced.
Okay. I'm sure we have. How often would I clean it?
All right, that's a great question. People don't know that. Rule of thumb, joke, like half as often as you go to the dentist. No. I would say like once a year. Once a year. It's not something you're going to remember, not something you're going to want to do, but you should probably calendar it on your email. Once a year, clean this, because if you do it yourself, or you pay somebody $100 or whatever it is, if it doesn't work, you can end up with thousands of dollars worth of damage, and you have to call in a mold remediation company to, fix your whole house. So it's definitely something you should calendar.
And this device, do we usually, Balkan Plumbing, when we install this, do we put it inside the pit?
Yeah, anytime it's below the floor, we have various size composite pits. So regardless of what kind of pit you have, if you want to upgrade, we have these composite pits that are flush on the floor. They're anti-skid, and the other beautiful thing is they're lockable. So if you have, children in the house, for instance, they can't take the cover off, get in the pit, damage something, or injure themselves. That's the beauty of these composite pits, which, again, we have them in various sizes.
Awesome. What other sizes do we have besides this one?
Well, most house sewers in the city of New York, house sewers, residential buildings, are 4-inch. We also can easily get them in 6-inch. Anything larger than that is absolutely a commercial building, and it would probably be a special order. Yeah.
Okay. From 1 to 10, where would you recommend homeowners to install? Should all residents have them, or?
No. First and foremost, you need a site visit by a professional to determine if you're even a candidate to have a check valve installed. And we provide site visits for free with no obligation. I would say frequently homes cannot have these installed. In particular, if your house sewer also takes flow from your leaders and gutters or area drains, because once the flap is closed, water can't come in, but water can't come out. So we have to carefully determine, if you put a check valve in a house that's not a candidate for it, you can actually create more damage than you're preventing.
Understood. When should a homeowner install a check valve? That's my question.
Well, that kind of reverts back to the question you just asked. If you're suffering backups during really heavy rains, you need a licensed professional plumber to come out there to check out your situation before you take any action, especially because we are so well versed in how to install it and where to install it. For instance, it's a great question, we've gone out to many houses where it's an easier installation. People have put the check valve after the house trap. Now, what good is that if you get a sewer surcharge and the plugs blow out of your trap? The check valve's closed and all the water's pouring out of your trap anyway, because the trap has to be on the house side of the check valve. So it really comes back to start out with a professional, start out with somebody you trust, start out with somebody that has integrity, that just won't install something when it's not even going to serve a benefit for you.
Right.
So that's it from Balkan Plumbing.
That's it so far.
Thank you, Christina.
You're welcome. Thank you.
And thanks for watching. We hope this really helps you guys out there.